The 2015 13-inch MacBook Pro probably has to be a favorite laptop of mine and a bunch of other used tech reviewers out there. And the reason why we love this laptop so much is for its excellent port selection, its excellent display resolution, and its high quality keyboard and trackpad, which you do not find on a lot of other laptops for about $200 to $300. But anyways, this laptop is kind of old. It's from 2015. So I wanted to do a test for a day to see how well it holds up in 2024 and is it worth getting for the casual users out there. Now, of course, starting off with the design of this laptop does kind of look a little old compared to some of the newer MacBooks out there. However, there are some things that I really like about it, like the light up Apple logo, but also the port selection on this is absolutely amazing. It has two USB ports, which a lot of accessories still use USB, so that's really nice. It has an SD card slot, and it has an HDMI port, which you don't get that until you spend thousands of dollars on like a 14-inch or 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, it is missing USB-C, so that was pretty annoying for whenever I had to plug in my USB-C hard drive or USB-C accessories, but you can get adapters out there that kind of modernize it and make you so you can plug it in this laptop. Another thing that's really nice about the design of this laptop too is MagSafe. So MagSafe is basically a magnetic connector that charges the laptop, and it's kind of sad that Apple retired it for a few years, but they finally brought it back with the new MacBooks. But it's really nice to have because it prevents it from being dragged down whenever it gets tripped, and it makes connecting the charger to the laptop a lot easier. And then of course, another thing we cannot forget about the design of this laptop is how amazing the display is. Now, I don't think you can find other cheap, newer like Windows laptops for around the same price, $200, that has this nice of a display. The display resolution is absolutely excellent. It's the same Retina display resolution that you get in the MacBook Airs. Even though it doesn't have the same color range the new MacBook Airs can do, its color range is still way good for a display of this price range. And the nits of brightness, this can only go up to 300 nits of brightness, so it's really good for indoor use. Outdoor use, it's maybe not bright as I would want it to be, but it's definitely decent enough. Now, the specs of the laptop I'm using right here has a 2.7 GHz dual-core i5 with 8 GB of RAM, 256 GB of solid-state storage, and Intel Iris Graphics 6100. Now, even though the specs do seem kind of old, performance-wise, it definitely is good enough for casual use. Scrolling through web apps and stuff, I haven't really noticed any issues in lag, especially going for applications. However, I did notice it may take like 2 to 3 seconds to load a web page, which is quite a bit slower than my M1 MacBook Air. But I do need to keep in mind this is a laptop from 2015. It's not going to have the fastest load speeds out there, but it still is decent enough for a casual computer. I also tried doing some gaming on this too with Minecraft. I was able to get about 15 to 20 frames per second on default settings, and then when I changed the render distance down to 7 chunks, I was about to get 30 frames per second. So Minecraft is kind of like barely on the edge of being playable on this. So definitely keep that in mind if you're thinking about buying this for any sort of gaming. But I think for web games and stuff like maybe Crunker.io, Mope.io, Slither.io, I think it's going to be enough performance-wise for that. And then for some of the other professional tasks like video editing, you can do 1080p video editing this with DaVinci Resolve. And after doing a speed test, it says it can do 4K video editing. But for some of the other applications out there like Final Cut Pro, iMovie, those just got drop support, and Adobe Premiere is probably going to get drop support in about a year or two. So if you're going to buy this for video editing, maybe casual 1080p video editing on DaVinci Resolve, but any other software, I would not buy this for video editing. And then for other types of professional apps too, like the Microsoft Cloud suite of apps and the Adobe suite of apps, those are probably on their last hair of getting support on this. Typically, the software developers that make those professional apps like Adobe, Microsoft, they'll support the latest updates for their apps for about 3 years after the latest macOS release. So this is running Monterey, and there was Ventura and then Sonoma. So it's probably on its last year or last 2 years of being able to get those latest app updates. So definitely keep that in mind if you're thinking about buying it for using the cloud versions of Microsoft Office or the Adobe apps, because there's a chance this is not going to get those updates. I don't know if you'll be able to run those apps after they get drop support, but you definitely need to be careful before you go out and buy this if you're thinking about using those apps. And then going to a little bit about my use of using this casually. When I was typing on the keyboard, the keys felt really soft and comfortable to type on. It still uses the mechanical keyboard. It doesn't use the really hard butterfly keyboards that the newer MacBooks after this has. And the trackpad on this too is something called a Force Touch trackpad. So what that does is it simulates a click when you're clicking on the trackpad. It doesn't actually click down physically. And that's really nice. That made using the trackpad on this feel really high quality. And that's a complaint I have too with a lot of cheap laptops around this $200 to $300 range, is the trackpad not being really responsive. But the trackpad here is absolutely amazing. I haven't noticed any issues or have any complaints using it. Now, as for battery life, when I unplugged this at 100%, it said I had about 9 hours remaining. And you need to keep in mind too, these laptops, they are a little bit older, so they're going to hold less and less battery capacity over time. The one I have here holds about 87%, so that kind of gives an idea of like how long battery life probably is going to be if you buy one of these used. But you definitely want to check the battery health on these before you go out and buy one. And in terms of actual battery drainage using it, I did use it for a few hours doing web browsing, and it drained about 45%. And I also did some testing too of like the apps and stuff I mentioned earlier. Battery life wise, it drained pretty consistently. I don't think it's really something that's really bad. However, if you are bringing this out and about or doing heavier, higher performance apps, it may be kind of annoying because the battery life probably isn't going to be good enough for that. But if you're just using it for casual at-home web browsing and work, battery life on this is definitely good enough. And then if you are curious too about some of the flaws that this laptop has, or that you need to watch out for when you go out and buy one, is they have this thing called an anti-reflective coating issue. So some of these, the anti-reflective coating is wearing off pretty easy on them, and it kind of looks like an eyesore when a lot of it gets worn off. However, when only a little bit's worn off, it's not really that big of an issue. And then another flaw too some of these have is the trackpad cable, which this is quite an obvious one, but if you go to look at one of these and the keyboard isn't working or the trackpad isn't working, it likely has a failed trackpad cable, and it's about $10 for the part and some labor if you have the right tools to do it. And then for actually going out and buying one of these, I would try to check with a store, either online or in person. I'll put a link to a store in the description that I know you can get these for, but you should be able to pick these up for anywhere between $200 to $300. And there also is the option too to look in your local area. Just make sure you go out and test it before you buy, which if you don't know what to test, I have a video on just how to do that. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Is the 2015 13-inch MacBook Pro still any good? And if you are curious too about other MacBook reviews I have, I'll put those up on screen. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.